Hello and welcome to day 2 of the North Super Series here just outside of Detroit, Michigan, where we are completing the final games that we started day 1 between Cleveland, Minneapolis, and Detroit. My name is Matt Dwyer. I will be commentating for the final 3 games of this series, starting with our first matchup, Cleveland against Minneapolis. To remind you of how things went down yesterday, Cleveland fared much better against Minneapolis than they did Detroit, able to score 80 in each contest. However, Minneapolis scored them 205 to 80 and 185 to 80 in the first and second games, respectively. With those victories yesterday, Minneapolis and Detroit both clinched their spot in the MLQ championship, leaving Cleveland as the 5th place team in the division and thus out of the playoffs. So today they're just playing for stats, for record, and for pride, and working on what is to come for next season. We'll see after their contest yesterday, having been able to put up 8 goals against Minneapolis, if they can repeat or beat that feat today. Our head referee once again, Alex Amadal, setting up the field here. I'd like to remind you that you can follow along score by score on quadball.one, that's quadball.one, to see score by score catches, cards, and everything else for all live games around the globe. Saw that some of the Australian teams were playing last night. Starters now at the line. And we are off. It's Lombardi against Charles, and Charles gets there first. And Cleveland manages to get control with Mosley starting at beater this game instead of Brechting, with his beating partner Connard. And so Minneapolis will have the first drive here. Charles on the near side. Down to Gustafsson. Pass was low, and that'll go out of bounds, so Cleveland recovers. Wasted first possession there from Minneapolis. We'll see how Cleveland responds. Mosley and Schluter fighting for control here as Cleveland pushes the pace on the other side of the field. It's Brechting in the white this morning as the pass to Gaffney went through her hands, and now both teams miscues on their first passes of the game. See if they can get that cleaned up. Minneapolis now coming in. Charles on the near side. Schluter and Majeski with control for Minneapolis. Zimmett at the top of the key now, back to Charles. Charles, shot no good. Snatched out of the air by Brechting. And now Cleveland will set themselves up on offense. Connor takes a sub for Yates, as Lombardi takes it up center for Cleveland. Lombardi to Brechting. Back to Lombardi. Has Diveston and Gaffney. Square and kitty corner. Sends it down, trying to get to Gaffney. Not quite sure. A quick beat up top by Minneapolis leaves it with no beaters back for Cleveland, and Zimmett's going to go on a run. Zimmett playing huge minutes for Minneapolis yesterday. Feeds. Ooh. Unfortunately, can't get the ball there. And it's a big pile up. Can't quite see who has it. And I think Cleveland ends up recovering. And I think that was number 10, Maya Shrestha, who ended up receiving that pass, but was quickly defended by Cleveland. Cleveland once more on the attack. Rob Beaton now in at beater, came in hot, They get the ball to Gaffney. Gaffney tries to go over the keeper, gets it to Brechting, but Brechting's beat, and it's another good defensive stand from Minneapolis. The Monarch beaters are looking hot this morning to start. Charles is going to go on a run. Chasers to beat. Charles turns the corner on Brechting. Blocked by Lombardi. Zimmett gets the rebound. Zimmett driving back to the other side. Inside, outside, through the hoop. Zimmett over Gaffney's head. And that is a goal for Minneapolis, 10-0. Lombardi on the far side with the ball. To Brechting. Brechting scores! A quick cut by Pete Brechting. And Cleveland has sorely missed his presence in the chaser game. Charles is going to head the other way now. It's no beaters back for Cleveland. Charles, bounce pass to Zimmett. Zimmett, pump fake once, over the top of the hoop. No good, and that'll be Cleveland ball. Great defense there by Cleveland. And an unfortunate throw for Ben Zimmett. High pressure now from Minneapolis as Majeski pushing the beaters, and now Zimmett gets their goal as Majeski created some high pressure, forcing a bad pass from Cleveland. And now Cleveland will take a couple line subs as well. Jones, Hutchman, Freeman, and Thompson in the chaser game. Thompson to Freeman. Freeman had a big game in their last one against Minneapolis yesterday, had 4 or 5. Hutchman up top, protected by Mosley. Cleveland has not really had a chance to get beater control yet this game. Looking to do so here. 5 minutes have elapsed, 20-10. Hutchman tries to get it to Jones. Jones handles it. Jones, a quick second hand, but tackled. And Monarchs able to recover that one after the tackle on Jones.
Make it happen.
So Charles will bring it up once more for Cleveland. Zimmett protected by McDowell. And Podolski also now in. Zimmett gets beat at the top of the key. Thompson's going to pick it up and then slows it down just a little bit. They were looking to run. Gets it to Hutchman as Podolski is beating the entirety of the Cleveland offense. McDowell gets in there too. Now Charles picks it up. He's going to go the other way. Charles trying to get around Freeman. Freeman. Woo! And Charles sinks that long shot through the top hoop. And that is 30-10 Minneapolis. Some good backwards footwork by Freeman, and Charles steps back and says, all right, bet. Thompson now bringing it up near side, protected by Mosley. Cleveland's still looking to get control here. Not a lot of movement from the Cleveland offense here. Jones at the top of the key. Jones over to Hutchman, intercepted by Devine. And Devine's going to run the other way. Podolski clearing the way for him. Devine's going to stop and set up as he saw Connard back with a dodgeball. Devine's got Swenson and Nelson and Shrestha. They were finding success with Swenson behind the hoops yesterday against Cleveland. They've sent him there again. And Devine's going to drive it in, and Devine through the top hoop. And just as Cleveland did in the first game yesterday, against Minneapolis. Minneapolis now finding themselves with a lot of long shot points. Thompson once more bringing it up center for Cleveland. Divison and Yates back in for Cleveland as well. Monarchs have held on to beater control almost the entirety of this match so far. Down to Freeman. Freeman driving in, gets beat, also blocked. And it looks like Freeman is down after a collision there. Hope that he's doing all right. They found a lot of success yesterday, sending Freeman to that short hoop on the left-hand side. Scored multiple from that angle, either backing into the defender or getting it off the cut. And this one, Minneapolis was ready for. Thomas was right there, got the block at the hoop, and then McDowell got the beat. Freeman now getting checked out by the AT. Our score of 40-10 right now. Minneapolis in the lead. Cleveland had their best success in the season against Minneapolis, putting up 80 in each game, which they have been unable to do in any of their other contests against Toronto, Chicago, and Detroit. And Freeman is up and is able to be helped off the pitch. Hope that he is doing all right. Looks like Cleveland will send in Will Kozak as the substitute for Freeman.
And then I'll just get new pairs. It's not that big a deal. Oh, every time I sit down, it feels
And
weird,
the teams
right?
will return
And
to their
one
brooms, and we'll get
don't
started
like
again
sitting
here
down.
shortly.
Like, on the hips and stuff, I really like it.
So the successful defense from Minneapolis leaves them with the ball right at their hoops. As it looks like Mike Devine at keeper will be picking it up. A little chit chat with the referee here, not sure why. So Kozak, because Freeman was beat, I believe, should be off broom. In any case, surrounded by Minneapolis players, and keeper has the ball, so it shouldn't really matter. Cleveland not known to press high into the keeper zone. I know that they were trying some high press yesterday and found a little bit of success with it, not quite as successful as, say, Detroit did, or Minneapolis even. Play resumed. Devine coming up center, passes to Thomas. Has McDowell and Podolski as beaters with balls. Thomas down to Swenson. Back to Thomas. Over to Devine. Mosley the lone beater back, and Podolski. Oh, it looks like Cleveland ended up getting control there, I think for the first time this game. A little bit of passing there between Nelson and Devine. Thompson strips the ball from Devine. Devine gets beat. Thomas picks it up, guarded by Hutchman. Thomas. And there's an advantage call for Minneapolis, as Cleveland calling for a press here as the entirety of the Minneapolis offense was beat. Thomas coming back here, trying to get around Thompson. And now finally a stoppage. Minneapolis had an advantage call that entire time. We'll see what that call is from our assistant referee here. Referee's conferencing, not quite sure what the call was. If I had to guess, it was a beater foul, but we'll see. And after a long conference, we'll get the call here in a moment. And that's an illegal swat from number 18, Lacey Hutchman. So Hutchman will get a blue card and sent to the box. And Thomas will maintain the ball. Mosley right next to her. As well as Thompson, so we'll see what Thomas does here. And that was also a dodgeball turnover. I think because of the swat caused that. So Thomas winding up, gets it to Devine, who manages to dodge the beat, but the ball goes out of bounds, and so that'll be Cleveland ball. So a successful defensive stand there for Cleveland. As Mosley will take a sub, and Yates as well. And now Brechting will don the black for Cleveland, and it's Brechting and Connard. As Thompson brings it up near side, has Kozak, Diveston, and Hutchman now back in the play. Kozak to Thompson, back to Kozak. Gets beat by McDowell right at the top of the key. Devine recovers. And a good play by McDowell to get the ball back in Minneapolis's hands. 10 minutes have elapsed. 40-10 is our score. As Minneapolis puts it down to Swenson. All the way over to Devine. And Devine's going to run it in. Stiff arms Thompson off the crossbar and in. 50-10. And Thompson wants to go on a run here. Gets tackled by Swenson, and a stoppage of play there. And it looks like Thompson was already past Swenson, which makes it a contact from behind. Swenson gets a yellow card and will head to the box. Thompson will maintain control of the ball. And there are no beaters back for Minneapolis. Got Brechting with a ball right in the zone. So Thompson has a chance here to get another one for Cleveland. And Thompson's going to run in. Brechting trying to clear a path. Thompson tries to get it past Thomas. No good. Thomas swats it out of their hands. From the ground. Gaffney shoots. No good. Now Thompson picks it up. Was beat. Kozak gets the rebound. And Kozak finally running it in and scores after blocking the beat from McDowell. 50-20. Cleveland getting their first goal in about 9 minutes. A lot of good rebounding there from Cleveland. A great defensive stand by Minneapolis. Just finally, Kozak gets it to go. As Thomas now passing it down to Nelson. Back to Thomas. Devine. Puts it up to Swenson. Swenson's beat by Connard. Can't get it to go. Thomas picks it up, or doesn't, and then Kozak. Kozak's gonna go, no beaters back, tries to get around Devine. Can't do it. Kozak's throw. No good, and Kozak is down after that contact. Kozak trying to turn the corner on Devine. Devine definitely a bigger body there. And so Kozak's shot goes low, and Twarowski was not quite close enough for Cleveland to run it down, so that'll be Minneapolis ball after this injury stoppage. It's unfortunate for Cleveland's chasing core, as Freeman went down earlier, was the substitute, or Kozak was the substitute for Freeman, and now Freeman's down. And I think Andrew Tudor, number 25, is the next man up. And Kozak is up and walking off under his own power. So we are hopeful that he is doing all right. And Tudor indeed comes in as the substitute. And that shortens Cleveland's roster even more. We talked a little bit yesterday about the beating side of things, how they are missing last-minute scratches Aaron Oler and Claire Shuey, which would have certainly been helpful in the beating game for them. And Minneapolis will take a couple substitutions here. Swenson and Devine go to the bench as they bring in Voth and Socek and Schwartz and Obi at keeper. And Cleveland decides to press here. Obi down to Voth. Voth, big throw up, trying to get it to Socek, but Twarowski handles it. And Cleveland, the bench is telling Twarowski to run it. And now they're slowing down. Cleveland with control. It's Brechting and Conrad at the top, along with Twarowski on the far side with the ball. Cleveland looking for their beaters to make chances here. Twarowski shoots and scores! 50-30. And a long shot as Monarchs have subbed out a lot of their taller players. And now maybe Cleveland will be able to shoot on those top hoops. And Cleveland is going to go ahead and take a timeout after that goal from Dominic Twarowski. 50-30. So now the game changes a little bit for Minneapolis, as the lineup that they have is not totally conducive to a zone defense. Not to say that none of those players can jump, but I think the player with the longest reach is probably Obi, who is playing at the top of the key on point defense. So Cleveland, if they can get Lombardi and Twarowski, their best long shooters, hot, they might be able to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm sure Minneapolis, ever the adjusting team, as we saw yesterday, will be able to adjust to that. We'll see what they do here. They do have Narveson in at beater. They might be able to use Narveson to put a little more pressure high, as well as Podolski. Both of them really were doing a tremendous amount of work yesterday, putting high pressure on Cleveland. Just sitting their beaters a little higher in the zone when they had control. So if they're able to do the same thing and they're able to force bad shots from Cleveland, you know, not allowing their shooters to get set up well, then they can mitigate some of the risk there. We'll see what adjustment they make after that stoppage, after that timeout called by Cleveland, as Obi brings the ball up now for the Monarchs. Over to Socek. Obi. As Monarchs try to get control, and they do, but Cleveland's going to go the other way. And now slow up as Lombardi, a bouncer into Gaffney, and oh, there was a stoppage right before the shot. I think Gaffney had that one, just truly threaded the needle there to Fiona Gaffney, sure handing it. And a referee's taking a long conference here. See what the call is in a moment. And it looks like it's an illegal swat from Fiona Gaffney, and that'll negate the goal. Gaffney arguing her case to Amadal. And so Gaffney will take a trip to the box, and instead of a goal, that's a turnover for Minneapolis, to Minneapolis. It'll go into the hands of Sam Schwartz. So with one beater back, Monarchs are going to go against Cleveland. Cleveland with one beater back, rather, and Schwartz's shot, no good. Picked up off the bounce by Lombardi, and that fast movement as Majeski beats Lombardi, and Obi's going to pick it up and go the other way. Green space in front of him, and Obi, an easy goal for the Monarchs. So Cleveland getting a handle on it and trying to fast break against Minneapolis. Didn't see Majeski getting back into the play fast. Great hustle by Zeke Majeski. And a stoppage here looks like perhaps, let's see, talking to the goal judge there. The hoops are not in alignment, so it seems, as is wont to happen. That last goal from Minneapolis off the turnover at midfield puts it at 60-30. So with that equipment adjustment stoppage adjudicated, Cleveland now has the ball once more, and they're back to full strength as Gaffney time has been served off the illegal swat. It's Beaton and Yates in at beater with control for Cleveland going against Majeski and Narveson. Narveson, the beater back with the ball. Lombardi floats it over top to Gaffney, maybe a little too lazily as Gaffney immediately gets beat by Narveson, and Minneapolis recovers the ball. Surprised Lombardi didn't just shoot that. Schwartz now near side. Heading middle. And Schwartz rips a shot. No good. And so that'll go back to Cleveland. I mean, hey, you got the open shot, you might as well take it. Cleveland maintains controls. They go on offense once more. Lombardi on the far side, sends it to Hutchman. Hutchman back to Lombardi, who mishandles it, able to keep it. Over to Tudor. Tudor driving in, gets beat. Picked up by Voth. And Minneapolis, another good defensive movement there, despite the beater pressure from Cleveland. Obi to Adi Socek. Socek center for Monarchs. Socek. Shot or a pass, not sure, gets it to Voth. Voth, and can't save it before it goes out of bounds. So that'll be an inbound for Cleveland, as Narveson able to get control back for the Monarchs off of Beaton and Yates. 60-30 our score, Monarchs in the lead. Lombardi directing traffic, setting up the offense. Lombardi to Twarowski, blocked at the hoops. I couldn't see if that was Socek or Schwartz, but blocked at the hoops as Obi just takes it the other direction off the rebound. And another goal for Minneapolis, 70-30. It It looks like Cleveland, their offense, they're really trying for this one throw pass here. One throw pass and score, really, and they've been doing that a little bit as Lombardi has sent a couple over, tried to hit Gaffney earlier, trying to hit Twarowski on that last play. They're just looking for the 1-2. Combo passing has definitely been lacking for Cleveland as Twarowski picks up the ball, tries to backhand it through the hoops, can't get it. And with no beaters back, Ben Zimmett is going to run it in for Minneapolis. They slow up for a second, gets around Twarowski, gets around Thompson, pump once, pump twice, goal for Zimmett. They've got another one, 80-30, and Minneapolis starting to create some separation in the score. Thompson at center for Cleveland, over to Twarowski. Hutchman also has Diveston low. Charles has subbed back in for Cleveland as Thompson, angled shot, can't get it. And that was Shrestha on the defense, denying Thompson's shot there, or denying a better angle at the very least. Gustafson and Schluter also checked in now for the Monarchs. Charles to Zimmett, blocked, picked up by Shrestha. Shrestha through the top hoop. 90-30, Maya Shrestha. The Minneapolis sideline pretty happy with that last goal. Minneapolis finding a lot more success driving on the Cleveland defense today. And Lombardi, just puts an absolute heater through the small hoop. 90-40. And that's the 20-minute mark, so last possession here for Minneapolis. Monarchs going to try and hold on to control as Schluter tries to disrupt Cleveland's defense down low. Zimmett driving in, underhands it to Gustafson, blocked by Kozak. Minneapolis can't get back on it, and that'll be a stoppage there as Cleveland recovers with a final defensive stand in the 20-minute mark. Now we'll take our 20-minute stoppage here, and we move into flag runner on pitch as flag runner today, Derek Parker. Parker, an experienced flag runner, definitely make it a little bit more difficult for our seekers today. We saw a couple quick catches from both Minneapolis and Detroit yesterday. It was Devine and Peterson who were both hot. Cleveland yet to find success in the seeking game much this season. Looks like Hutchman is donning the yellow for Cleveland from this angle, and it'll be Devine for Minneapolis. Depending on what Minneapolis's beaters do here with a 60-goal lead, or a 60-goal, excuse me, it's a 50-point lead after that last goal. Cleveland will have an opportunity to maybe run up some points here if they can either get some good driving going from Lombardi or Thompson, or some long shots from Lombardi or Twarowski. That's really how they're going to have to keep in this game. And it's going to take basically Mosley or Brechting to clear the lane for them, as they've done the most. on the offensive side of the ball this morning for Cleveland. In order for the Riff to have any sort of shot. On the Minneapolis side of things, they're finding their chances. I think they need to continue what they're doing. They're having success in the size mismatch and some of the speed mismatch in order to get drives for goals. As we head towards the end of our 20-minute stoppage here, our set score will be 150. 150. Much lower than the set scores from yesterday between these two teams, which
All right,
were
Parker, let's go.
200 and 180 respectively, games 1 and 2. So the teams break and we'll retake the field. And indeed, it's Hutchman and Devine, or looks like they have Majeski also in a yellow. We'll see who's starting here for Minneapolis. It's Seeker. Lombardi is on. No, they've substituted Lombardi in for Thompson, so Thompson's on the far side of the field there. Minneapolis with beater control. It's Podolski and Schluter. So Hutchman's going to have a hard time here unless Cleveland can get control back. And it looks like Mosley's going to take center position as well. And now all three beaters in the center of the field as the Seekers are released. And Thompson passes it down to Kozak, manages to handle it off the bounce, blocked by Zimmett, and out of the arms of Diveston, excuse me. And Obi comes away with it. 90-40 still our score as we start flag runner period. Podolski keeping Hutchman at bay. Devine getting all the time that he needs. Zimmett at the top of the key here for Cleveland, or for Minneapolis, excuse me. Cleveland defending. Over to Obi. Zimmett. Obi wanted the pick. Down to Gustafsson. Over to Shrestha. Pass a little wide. Maya Shrestha. Wrapped by Diveston and beat by Mosley. Good defense there by Cleveland, capitalizing off of that missed pass. So Thompson with a little alacrity. Heading on the far side of the field, keeping away from the Minneapolis beaters who have been mostly sticking to the flag runner. Schluter now coming center for the Monarchs. Thompson pass to Gaffney, kick throw to Kozak, and Kozak unable to convert the goal after the beat, or before the beat, really. So Minneapolis, once again, another good defensive stand. 90-40 still, as Gustafsson will now take it up for Minneapolis.
Let's go. He's still up.
Devine getting all the time in the world against Parker on the flag runner. Obi sending it to Zimmett behind. Zimmett scores. They've got yet another one. I think they've got at least 3 on the morning for Minneapolis. That's 100-40. Thompson really skirting that midline there. And it looks like Cleveland has put Brechting back in at chaser. And Brechting takes a hard shot at the small hoop. No good off the post. And Minneapolis recovers that one. They'll bring it back up. Devine expending a lot of energy here, really trying to out-physical Parker. And Parker just really not letting him anywhere close. Shrestha and Gustafsson to Obi. As McDowell now checked in at beater for the Monarchs. And Obi, a quick step side and shoot and score. And now a Seeker substitution as Majeski comes in for the Monarchs for some fresh legs. Diveston coming in as the substitute for Cleveland. Majeski getting close. As Thompson passing down to Brechting. Brechting, pump, shoots, scores! Pete Brechting, 110-50 now. Minneapolis still leading, but Cleveland, they are not giving up.
All right, let's go.
Obi now bringing it up center. Monarchs keeping a decent amount of beater control here as Thomas, bad pass down to Swenson, and that'll be recovered by by Thomas, and then an inbound for Cleveland. Thompson will have to take inbounds all the way over in the far corner there. So bad passing again. Minneapolis has lost a couple, just some poor passing in the corner there. They need to take care of the ball a little more if they want to convert a few more of these. That's a bit of a wasted drive. Cleveland, a similar problem, though they're really trying for just a pass and a shoot. Thompson's going to run on the far side, flips it back to Twarowski, who's now in. Has Gaffney, has Brechting, and Twarowski, a mid-ranger through the top hoop. Bardowski's. $110-60, and Cleveland not out of this. Our set score 150. Monarchs need 4.
Go Monarchs. Someone else go up. Someone else go up.
Obi once more. And Devine will come back in at seeker. Cleveland not getting even a look at the flag runner. McDowell looking to clear lane. Obi over to Nelson. Nelson has Swenson way in the backfield. Obi driving in and scores through contact. And another one for Minneapolis, 120-60. And Beaton with a key beat manages to get control for Cleveland for the first time in this flag runner period. And it's no beaters back for Monarchs, so Thompson's going to drive. Thompson driving against the whole team themselves, gets it back up to Twarowski. And it's Twarowski to Brechting. Brechting over to Thompson. Thompson. And Thompson lays it in. Another goal for Cleveland, 120-70. Cleveland has been able to get 80 in their last 2 games. Are they able to do it again against Minneapolis? Beaters a little bit off pitch here, and now coming back into the play, it's Yates and Beaton as Obi over to Swenson on the Monarchs side of the ball. They're going to have to be much more patient as McDowell is just trying to protect the flag runner. Narvison now checked in at beater for the Monarchs as well. And it's Socek in at seeker as Swenson's shot goes way high. And Cleveland will get that one.
There you go.
Cleveland, despite having beater control now, their seeker really has not gotten a chance. Divison subbing out for Hutchman. As a low pass, Brechting handles it with grace off the turf and in. 120-80 in Cleveland clawing this one back. Obi over to Devine, who's checked back in the chaser game now. Down to Nelson, also has Thomas square to them. Nelson's shot no good, handled by Thompson. It's just Obi to beat as Thompson and Obi a high hit. And Thompson goes to the ground. I couldn't tell from this angle if it was legal, if it was at the shoulder. Obi really is not happy with this. push from behind. So not high contact, but a push from behind. That's a yellow card. So Cleveland has the power play on the fast break here. Narveson is the lone beater for Monarchs on the other side of the pitch. So Narveson's going to have to hustle to get back into the play as Cleveland has Brechting at the small hoop. We'll see if they can convert here. They gotta. And Brechting comes over to set the pick. Thompson goes to the other side and lays it in as Narveson narrowly misses the beat. They did it as difficultly as they possibly could, but they still got the score. Hutchman and Socek now no beaters at the flag runner, and Parker's got his hands full as now sensing the danger, 120-90 with a set score of 150. Minneapolis focusing themselves in the beater or the quadball game. The pass to Voth is mishandled, who kicks it over. Obi recovers off the kick, dodges the beat. Obi's going to drive in. Shot too high and handled by Devine. They'll get another go at it. Shot down to Obi. And Socek just defending on the flag runner. Pass over to Thomas, dodges the beat. Pass to Voth. And Lombardi unable to swat it through the hoop. I think Lombardi thinks that he had it, but no good. No good for Cleveland, rather. That's a good goal for Monarchs, 130-90.
Keep going, Parker.
And now Podolski is going to give Socek some time here. And Cleveland having some miscommunique. Lombardi over to Torowski. And no good. Torowski got beat just barely before the shot. 130-90 as Cleveland has now scored more than the previous two games against Minneapolis. This is their highest score this entire Super Series. Charles now checked in at chaser. He's going to try and get around Lombardi. Back to Devine, who gets beat. Back to Charles. Charles, pump once, pump twice. Bar down and in. And it's another goal. 140-90, and Minneapolis just needs one more.
Right, Parker, let's go. One more point. Hold out, hold out.
Minneapolis, one more goal needed to close this one out. Lombardi down to Gaffney, who handles it. No beaters back. Gaffney's got Tudor. Over to Tudor, dodges the beat. Tudor driving in, blocked by Charles. And contact from behind. Tudor didn't quite pull his momentum fast enough. And this is the worst time to have a foul. Goal to go for Minneapolis on the power play. Devine's going to run it in. It looks like Minneapolis is all in. Narveson's ahead. To Charles. And Charles, with the finishing shot, able to end the game for Minneapolis, sweeping Cleveland 3-0. Our final score, Minneapolis Monarchs 150, Cleveland Riff 90. And Parker manages to not get caught as Monarchs do it on goals alone. Definitely the best showing offensively for Cleveland this Super Series. We'll see if they can carry that forward into playing Detroit later on today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us as we conclude this three-game set between Minneapolis and Cleveland. Cheering from the stands from the Minneapolis supporters.
Are you going to be okay to drive home? I lost the contact, and I don't think I had spares. So.
Our next game will begin at 12:05. Both teams head to the sidelines. Detroit will be next up. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for day 2 of the North Super Series here outside Detroit, Michigan. A beautiful day today. hardly a cloud in the sky, which is unfortunate because the turf gets hot, and yesterday, earlier in the day, the teams were at least able to have some cloud cover. So we will go ahead and join back up at 12:05. Keep it locked here on the Major League Quadball YouTube channel. Subscribe and hit the bell so you can see every time we go live. All right, so we'll join back at 12:05. Thank you very much. All right, hello and welcome back to the North Super Series here outside of Detroit, Michigan. We are soon to start our next game between the Detroit Innovators and the Minneapolis Monarchs. This will be the last game in the series. Detroit finding huge success so far. This is the first time that they've managed to win a series against Minneapolis, going back to their inception in 2019. That was the last time as well that Detroit beat Minneapolis, was in 2019, and since it has been all Minneapolis all the time. Well, that changed yesterday when Detroit beat them twice. First game 125-60, second game 135-80. Detroit having a strong season this year, both teams after yesterday clinching their spot in the playoffs at the MLQ Championship, which will take place later in August 17th through the 19th. So with two tight games, with both methodical offenses and defenses, we'll see if the same thing happens today after a night of rest. Minneapolis already played this morning against Cleveland, who had their best showing of the weekend against them, putting up 90 before the eventual Minneapolis win, although it was probably a little closer than Minneapolis wanted, at one point getting to within 30 right at the end of the game there. However, with different lineups and different strategy, Minneapolis might be able to take a game off Detroit here and improve their rankings for later in the season. This is the second to last game for Detroit this regular season. They have Cleveland after this. Minneapolis will be done here and then be going on August 3rd, facing Toronto for the final game in the North, the final set of games in the North Division. Teams doing their chants, getting themselves lined up. We'll get your lineups here in just a moment. Looks like a fairly familiar lineup for Detroit. Maybe a couple changes here. Luce Markland starting at chaser. Or is at least out here? Maybe not, no. Luce is just helping fix the field. It looks like a familiar lineup here. We've got Glenn, Smyers, Sowers, and I'm missing one here. I think Detroit's missing one here. And there he is, Freed, coming out onto the field. And Sue and Brodeur, the Development Academy duo, starting at beater. On the Minneapolis side of things, opposite beater, it's Podolsky and Schluter, as well as Zimmett, Socek, Nelson, and Obi starting at keeper. Gets underway in just a moment here as Alex Amadal, our head referee for the series, gets the teams set up and ready to go. Minneapolis attacking right to left in the white and purple kits. Detroit in the classic teal and black, left to right. Referee getting them a chance to redo their chant. And we are off. Glenn and OB, and Glenn gets the ball first into Freed's hands. And a quick turnover as Podolsky hits Freed immediately. Obi picks it up and scores, and it's quick goal for Minneapolis as the Monarchs get control, and it is all Minneapolis momentum off the jump. Now Detroit will take their first offense as Glenn brings it up center. Monarchs with control in a 2-2 set here. Over to Freed. Freed, huge for this Detroit program this year. Their leading scorer, put up many more yesterday as well. And it looks like a miscue there from Smyers. Allows Glenn to pick it up, and Detroit maintains possession. Put it down to Sowers, over to Smyers, who gets back in the play. Smyers to Glenn. Freed. Minneapolis compacted D here. And Detroit is really looking for their options. They've been given the advance call, so to avoid a delay of game. And a one-hander, Sowers to Freed, and Freed puts it home. 10-10. Minneapolis now bringing it up. OB over to Nelson. Back to OB. Detroit has regained control. Brodeur and Sue sitting close to center hoop. As Detroit now putting some pressure on. OB. A zinger of a pass into Addy Socek, who finishes. And Glenn's headed the opposite direction. Blocks the beat, and Glenn going all the way, scoring. We're tied up at 20. And another close one brewing here in Detroit. Obi shakes around Sowers, gets around Glenn. Shot no good, blocked by Freed. Freed, he's got one beater to get around. Freed over to Sowers. Sowers mishandles it. Beat misses. Sowers from the ground to Freed. Freed scores! And Sowers to Freed twice in a row. (30-20). Detroit now in the lead. And it wasn't twice in a row. Glenn had the fast break there. And now all beaters on the ground. Detroit maybe losing control here. Another pass to Socek, missed, and Freed picks it up. Freed's going the opposite direction. Freed long bounding strides up the field to Glenn. Glenn, easy finish. And Detroit maintaining control after that, putting all dodgeballs on the ground. And Detroit, huge momentum swing here, 40-20.
Go Monarchs!
Zimmett now bringing it up for the Monarchs. Over to Devine, now in a keeper. Gustafson also checked in, as well as Schwartz. Zimmett over to Gustafson, handled, blocked by Freed, picked up by Glenn. Glenn's going the opposite direction. Glenn, no one to beat. And it's another goal for Ashton Glenn. 50-20, and Detroit, a lot of momentum right now, as the Detroit Beaters are soundly taking control of this game. McDowell and Narveson now in for the Monarchs as Devine brings it up for them. And it's Banis and Smiley in for Detroit as Banis and Narveson trade. Detroit hangs on to control. Gustafson down to Goulet, and Goulet shot no good. And it looks like Detroit will be able to inbound at the midline here. Glenn to Smyers. Detroit keeping in this first chaser line still. Sowers going around the far side of the hoops. Has Freed, shot no good. Banis saves the backfield violation, so Glenn gets another shot here at the top of the key to Freed. Devine on the defense. Glenn shot, blocked by Goulet. Picked up by Smyers. Flip back out, and Detroit gets another shot at it. Great offensive rebound by Detroit. Banis trying to clear a lane for Detroit. The ball all the way back up to Smyers, who's going to drive in over to Glenn. Gets around Divine, gets around Gustafson. Glenn putting it through the small hoop. Another goal, 60-20 Detroit. And Minneapolis kept it tight for so long there until Detroit speeders were finally able to clear just a little bit of a lane on that far side. Over to Goulet now. To Divine. Gustafson driving in. Gustafson scores! It's the first Minneapolis goal in a moment here. 60-30. Detroit still in the lead as Divine, putting some high pressure on Sowers, now backs off. Sowers to Freed. To Glenn, and Glenn scores! Some good combo passing, 70-30. Goulet now at the top of the key for Minneapolis. Narveson doing his darndest to clear a lane here. Goulet getting around Glenn. Pass to Gustafson. Gustafson beat. Smyers recovers, and it'll be a dog pile with Schwartz there. And now they'll back off. A line change finally for Detroit as Pratt and Maxey come in at chaser, as well as Ryder Freed at keeper. Maxey on the far side, back to Freed. It's Swanson and Hodder in at beater, and Freed over to Pratt. Pratt gets beat, gets the ball to Ryder Freed, over to Leo Freed. Leo Freed shoots, beat before. And that'll be a stoppage turnover for an over and back. And so Minneapolis will get the ball after that long shot, no good, thanks to a beat from the Monarchs, who have now recovered control, and Narveson and McDowell hoping to make something happen on offense here, clear a lane for Divine, Goulet, Schwartz, and Gustafson. 70-30 our score, Detroit in the lead. Divine, near side. Goulet. Narveson clearing a lane here. Goulet over to Schwartz. Schwartz scores! And Ryder Freed's gonna go quick, then slow up. Narveson clearing a big lane there, allowing Minneapolis to move in and score. 70-40 our score now. Leo Freed near side, passes off to Ryder Freed. Ryder Freed. And pass after beat, that'll be a turnover back to Minneapolis. Minneapolis, we talked about yesterday, and they're showing it here now. Some good defensive movement. Goulet now bringing it up near side. Detroit has regained control. Hodder and Swanson holding it down. Goulet, step, blocked by Freed. Tackled by Divine in the zone. And Divine managing to save the fast break there, allowing the Monarchs defense to get back. Good heads-up play by Mike Divine. Goulet putting some high pressure on Detroit, stopping up their momentum as Gwen Pratt at center. Sue and Brodeur now in for Detroit. Over to Freed, back to Pratt. Pratt driving in, Pratt to Ryder Freed, backhanding it over Thomas. And another goal for Detroit, 80-40. Monarchs making a few substitutions. Thomas and Voth are in, as well as Zimmett and OB to round out the chaser line. And Majeski now checking in along with Schluter at beater. Maxey putting a little bit of high pressure here for Detroit. Passes it over to OB, getting away from Sue, and OB scores through the medium hoop. Another goal for Minneapolis, 80-50. They're keeping it close. As Pratt inbounds it, hands off to Ryder Freed. And now takes the ball once more. Detroit with control. Over to Freed, back to Pratt. Pratt to Leo Freed. Leo Freed. And an advantage off the beat from, I couldn't see, I think it was Brodeur. Adds another goal for Detroit, 90-50. OB now bringing it up for the Monarchs. To Thomas. Zimmett. Zimmett gets around Maxey to Obi. Way over the top. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be a shot or a pass. Either way, it'll be a turnover to Detroit. And Detroit calling for a few substitutions now. Leo Freed finally subbing out for Nick Love. As Markland receives the pass. As Schluter keeping him honest with some high pressure. And Rob Butler in a keeper now as well for Detroit. Markland down to Love. All the way back up to Butler. Monarchs with control. Pratt to Love, playing pretty deep. Back to Pratt. Back to Butler. Markland. Markland all the way over to Love. Back to Butler. They're killing time to get Sue in and now get the advance directive. Pratt gets beat, manages to get it to Love. Love gets beat, and that is some patient defense by Minneapolis. 90-50, still our score. This is the largest lead that Detroit has had early in this series against Minneapolis. It was pretty tight earlier in the previous two games. Zimmett on the far side for the Monarchs as goes down to Voth. To Zimmett, back up to OB. Sue back in the play, and Voth unable to handle it. So close, but Markland gets it away from Voth's hands. Butler protected by Brodeur. Over to Pratt. Pratt was called clear, but Minneapolis picks it up anyways. It was close. Sue and Brodeur still holding control for Detroit as the Monarchs take it up once more. See what Schluter and Majeski can do here. Brodeur Beat dodge by Zimmett. Zimmett passing it over to Voth. Voth mishandles it. Tries to pick it up. Thomas tries to pick it up, and Marklin just puts Thomas on the ground. And we'll see a stall warning here. And now Detroit will just come away with it. After that miss from Brodeur, Monarchs able to get control once more. And now Smiley and Banis will try and get it back for Detroit, now checked in. Butler bringing it up over to Marklin. Marklin to Love, who just swats it into the air, I think, just to try and save the beat. But it goes into the hands of OB, who's going the other way. Butler tackles OB. Gets him on the ground. Love tries to recover the swatted out ball. Goes to Pratt. Intercepted by Zimmett. Zimmett spins out of Marklin's grasp. And now Minneapolis manages to save it. Nelson and Socek now checked in for Minneapolis, as well as Charles in at keeper. Despite a great stop by Detroit, Minneapolis managed to hold on to it. As Charles up to Socek. Socek blocked by Pratt and handled by Butler. Monarchs still maintaining control. Smiley and Banis against Majeski and Schluter. Ball all the way over here in the corner to Pratt. Fake over to Love on the far side. And now Detroit has managed to regain control. So Detroit will look to push here. Butler down to Love. Up to Marklin. Down to Love once more. All the way back up to Butler. Butler to Pratt. Pratt scores! First goal in a minute here, 100-50 Detroit. 5-goal lead. And Minneapolis will use their timeout. So after a slight scoring drought there, at least in terms of time, Detroit, with the patience, manages to regain control, and a little combo passing allows Pratt to get open and score for the 10th goal of the game thus far. Coming up close here to our 20-minute mark, where we'll have flag runner on pitch, and then the ball game changes. Minneapolis is going to need to make an adjustment here if they want their offense to be able to score. That has been, I think, the biggest trouble. The defense has looked pretty good despite what the scoreboard says, but the offense has been struggling just a little more. They found some success, a quick pass on a slanting cut to OB or Gustafson, for example, but they have not been finding a lot more drives or a lot more, I'll call them close-range shots. They've looked for it a couple times on the small hoop, most recently to Adi Socek, but Detroit has been keeping it pretty tight on defense in those instances. We'll see what adjustment they need to make here. And Detroit, I'm not sure what adjustment they'll need to make either. Been playing pretty well and have had a firm grasp on this game since the beginning. Let's say 3 minutes or so. It was tied for a moment, and then Detroit slowly but surely started pulling away. After the timeout, team's getting themselves situated here. It'll start in Charles's hands on the Minneapolis side of things. Detroit holding control with Bannis and Smiley. Podolski now checked in at beater as well for the Monarchs. And it looks like Detroit's got the first lineup back in. Leo Freed, Smyers, Sowers, and Glenn. Ball over to Zimmett, and looks like Schluter manages to get control here. So Minneapolis now in a more primed position to score. Zimmett with pressure from Sowers. Over to Charles. Zimmett once more. Charles again. And Charles, and that's the look that they've tried to do a couple times with mixed success, is over to the right side and then a shot on the medium hoop. Charles shot too high, so Detroit ball. 100-50 our score. And that is our 20-minute mark, so this will be the last possession here. Detroit with Freed bringing it up near side. And they're really hoping to get control before they score, or there's a turnover before the period ends so they can have it for flag runner on pitch. Up to Smyers now. Back down to Freed. To Glenn. Glenn shoots. Glenn! From distance, scores. And that'll end the period, 110-50. Detroit, a decisive lead. Now we'll have a 20-minute stoppage timeout as Derek Parker, our runner, makes his way onto the field. Parker uncaught in game one. Both teams had a quick catch yesterday. For Detroit, Neil Peterson, and for the Monarchs, Mike Devine. However, while I don't have the stats, I think I would believe that Parker has not been caught quickly very often, if ever. So it'll be a good matchup between these seekers and the flag runner. Minneapolis is going to have to dedicate some substantial amount of their beating time to the flag runner if they want a shot at it. And they know that Peterson can have a hot hand, which may allow Detroit to run up the score if they can get their fast break momentum going. We'll see what they do here. And we're breaking out of our 20-minute stoppage. Detroit retaking the field. I think Detroit, if the Minneapolis Beaters do end up being more in the flag runner game, they're going to have to get just a tidge more aggressive. The passing for Detroit this season has been very good, and as we've seen in this game here. But they're really going to need to step in and score just a bit faster if they're going to take advantage of the opportunities. Minneapolis, as we saw in the Cleveland game earlier, and as we saw it all day yesterday, has done a good job of splitting their beater time between the two areas of the game. Some control in the chaos. Our set score 170 as Detroit leads Minneapolis 110-50, and Minneapolis will start with the ball. It's Divine starting. Monarchs have control to start this period. McDowell and Podolsky. As Divine to Goulet, gets around Glenn, and Goulet, a quick goal for Minneapolis, 110-60. And the beaters are flying everywhere. Goulet's hard shot sent it way off field, so Detroit can't make a fast break in the other direction. And now Sue and Brodeur able to give Peterson some time. Thomas in its seeker for Minneapolis. Glenn bringing it up center. And McDowell, the lone beater back for the Monarchs, sticking with the chaser game as Freed to Sowers, who mishandles it. Now Sowers driving in, around Socek, around Nelson, and Sowers scores. 120-60, Detroit leading. Divine will bring it up once more. If Detroit's going to keep a lot of their energy in the seeker game, then Minneapolis can get a little aggressive. Here's Divine, sends it past, intercepted by Freed. Freed, no one back. Freed going all the way, scores. 130-60. Peterson and Thomas now getting some time. Podolsky getting Peterson out of there, so Thomas gets a shot now on Parker. Socek down to Goulet, and Goulet scores, and it's some high-powered offense now as the beaters are focusing much on the seeker game. 130-70. As Glenn will need to take it all the way back in his keeper zone. Peterson pretty close to it, reaching from the ground. It's Narveson and McDowell. McDowell is the lone beater back. Sowers trying to get around Socek. Brodeur clearing the lane. Sowers scores! And there's the aggressive movements that we've been talking about. 140-70 in Detroit, trading goals with Minneapolis. Brodeur throw back to save control for Detroit. Gustafson down to Goulet. Goulet gets the pick, and Goulet, no good. And that'll go back. That's an over and back. So the ball gets turned over to Detroit. Hard shot for Goulet, unable to get it to go. Glenn's going to run down the far side. McDowell and Divine cut an angle, not allowing the direct shot. Back up to Smyers as Markland now in its seeker for Detroit, and Schwartz in its seeker for Monarchs. Smyers to Sowers. Markland now gets some alone time as Sowers, another drive in and score. That it puts it at 150-70.
2 more points, Parker. Let's go.
And Sowers has been absolutely electric in the second half of this game.
All right, see ya. 2 more points, Parker. Let's go.
Divine on the far side now to Goulet. Goulet looking to drive, wrapped up by Glenn. Glenn takes Goulet to one knee. Glenn strips the ball of Goulet. And Narveson, a lone beater back for Monarchs after a big throw from Schluter. Thomas subs in at seeker for the Monarchs. Markland still getting plenty of alone time as Smyers has the ball on the far side, trading passes with Glenn. Detroit still with control. So Narveson sticking close to hoops here. Voth and Gustafson also checked in for Minneapolis. Glenn running the far side. He'll take a lap. Up to Smyers. Smyers. Glenn. Over to Freed. Freed misses the pass, and that'll go out of bounds. Minneapolis ball. Jenny Sun now in for Detroit in at seeker. Smiley giving her some time. Devine driving on, no beaters. Pass too tall for Voth. Voth runs it down, falls on it. Smyers falls on them. And it looks like contact from behind. Smyers did not get themselves into a good enough position for contact. And Minneapolis will now have a power play. It's Voth in the corner with Goulet. And Freed is also back there. And Voth is going to take the option to head back to the keeper zone line. A strategic move here. And Voth with just Glenn on defense and no beaters nearby. And Voth goes for the small hoop. Glenn can't block it, and it's a goal for Minneapolis. 150-80. Detroit just needs 2 more here. Minneapolis needs 9. Glenn bringing it up now for Detroit. Schluter and Narveson now with control for the Monarchs. Freed turning the corner, tries to get it to Sowers, no good. Rebound by Devine. And now Monarchs will be able to give their seekers something. As Devine feeds to Goulet. Goulet unable to get the pass, picks it back up, gets around Sowers, trips, Turf Monster got him. Goulet back up, dance, back to Devine. Devine beat at the top of the key. Glenn's gonna pick it up, 2 beaters back, so he thinks better of running.
2 points still, let's go!
And Ryan Sue making that crucial beat at the top of the key for the turnover. As Juanis now in at seeker for Detroit. And Thomas will take a sub at seeker for the Monarchs. Schwartz will come in. Glenn down to Sowers. Sowers dodges beat, dodges 2 beat. Sowers drives in and scores. It's another one for Brady Sowers. 160-80. And Detroit ready to deal the killing blow. Monarchs with control now. Narveson, double catch. Sue the second catch. Schluter trying to get control back as Voth passes it down on the far side to Goulet. Snatched out of the air by Freed once more. And a stoppage. They're calling a good goal. I think that just went between the hoops. And apparently that was a good goal. So 160-90, and Glenn's going to go on a tear, running up the field. Glenn all the way through the top hoop. And that will do it. 170, the final score, 290. Detroit, for the first time, sweeping the Minneapolis Monarchs. And this win, more decisive than the previous 2 yesterday. Detroit, 1 game away from going perfect at this Super Series. It's just Cleveland to go at the next game. So the final scores there for the 3 games. 125-60, 135-80, and then with no catch in this one, 170-90. Detroit winning all 3. A decisive victory, and that'll cement Detroit as the number 2 team in the division as they punch their ticket to the championship in Howard County, Maryland. Minneapolis, 3-3 on the weekend. Couldn't have asked for much more out of the team there, as they had a hard-fought match all the way to the end. Thank you very much for joining us for this final game between Detroit and Minneapolis. We've got one more game for you today. The Innovators will take on Cleveland Riff for Game 3 in the series. Innovators have been dominant thus far. Cleveland has had a lot of trouble on offense. And so we will see here if they're able to carry their momentum forward after having a solid game against the Monarchs earlier to put up more of a fight against Detroit and chasing the elusive win. While you're here in this stoppage, which we will start back up at 1 o'clock, you can subscribe to the MLQ YouTube channel. Hit the bell so you know when we're going live, and join us later this season, August 17th through the 19th, for the MLQ Championship, which will be broadcast right here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll take a quick break. Join us back here at 1 o'clock for the final game in this Super Series here in Detroit, Michigan.
Fuzzy.
All right, hello and welcome back as we get ready to get underway for the final game of this North Super Series here in Detroit, Michigan. The final game, as it began, Detroit versus Cleveland. The Innovators have been, frankly, dominant. They are one game away from a perfect Super Series. All that stands in their way is Cleveland Riff. And they probably have some confidence coming into this game because they have, well, frankly, they just simply dominated Riff in the first two games, 155-10 and then 190-30. Riff has barely been able to get any offense going, and Detroit's attack has been too strong for them to ward off in almost any way. Flashes of brilliance, of course, and Riff did have a very strong game against the Monarchs earlier this morning. So we'll see if they can take that momentum forward and put something to the Innovators. Our starters getting lined up as our referee, Alex Amadol, gets us started for the final time this weekend. Starting lineup for the Riff. It's Brechting and Connard once more at beater, along with Divison, Mosley in the white, Lombardi, and Gaffney. For Detroit, Brodeur and Swanson in at beater, along with Freed, Pratt, Leo Freed, Pratt, Ryder Freed, and can't quite tell. I think that is Sarah Moulter to round out the Detroit Chaser core. And we are off. Detroit left to right in the teal, Cleveland in the alternate pinks. And Mosley gets the ball to start. It's no beaters, and Mosley flips it over to Gaffney. Gaffney blocked by Freed. And a good offense to start and a good defense to start for both teams. Just couldn't get it to go. As Freed now bringing it up the field, and Brechting and Connard regain control at the end of that from the opening rush. Ryder Freed. To Pratt. Pratt wants to drive in, fakes, now to Freed. Over to Ryder Freed, doesn't matter, it went through anyways. The best kind of pass. A shot. That'll be the first goal of the game. 10-0, Detroit in the lead. Cleveland maintaining controls. Lombardi brings it up. Protected by Brechting. I think we can make a tongue twister out of that one. Lombardi, pump fakes, gets around Pratt. Pratt not letting Lombardi go, gets beat. Lombardi, the beats dodge, no beater back, and Lombardi flips it up, no good. And Mosley handles it, scores through the top hoop, 10-10. And this is something that Cleveland has been missing, just with the way that their line has been working in the late minute scratches from their beater lineup, is Pete Brechting and Mosley in the Chaser headband, and they get Jack Mosley here in one now. Pratt over to Ryder Freed, up to Leo Freed, and puts it in. Leo Freed over the top of Lombardi. And Brodeur, the lone beater back, and now is beat as Lombardi, and it's a pass that's a shot, and Lombardi puts it through, 20-20, and it's a high press for Cleveland, and Detroit passes out of it, and they'll go back. Cleveland will go back on defense. Brodeur and Swanson now have control for Detroit.
Get him, Jen!
Pratt with the ball. To Ryder Freed. Turns the corner on Gaffney, scores! Both teams seemingly scoring at will now, 30-20 Detroit. Yates now in at beater for Cleveland. Detroit still with control. Lombardi uses the pick. Ryder Freed gets around it. Mosley to Lombardi. Wrapped up by Pratt. Gets out of it as with a pass to Mosley. And Cleveland, now with Gaffney back in the play, will turn back towards the hoops after some passing. Brechting gets beat. Lombardi's going to try and drive in. Lombardi gets beat. Freed gets the rebound off the crossbar. Freed going coast to coast. Freed scores. Leo Freed. 40-20. Riff does manage to recover control off of that one. Great hustle by Brechting, who's now going to take a substitution to Rob Beaton. And Jones checks in at chaser as well as Twarowski for Cleveland. Lombardi flips it to Twarowski. Twarowski blocked by Freed. I don't know how many times I've said that this weekend, but boy, it's got to be at least a dozen. Pratt now bringing it up center. 40-20 Detroit. Over to Ryder Freed. To Pratt. Pratt fakes Lombardi. Puts it up. No good. Leo Freed gets the rebound, and that one is good. 50-20. Hutchman and Thompson now checking in for Cleveland, as Detroit has made a lineup change as well. It's Sviridov and Smiley in at beater. Detroit holding control as Pratt with some aggressive point defense. Detroit sideline telling them on the field to push the pace, as Thompson's got it in the corner. All of Cleveland's team is beat, and Thompson now beat as well in the corner. So Ryder Freed's going to take it up for Detroit. Trading beats, and Detroit comes away with it as the shot, no good. Rebounded by Moulter. Her shot no good. Over to Ryder Freed, into Leo Freed. Where did he even come from? Freed to Freed, with Leo Freed just streaking in out of absolutely nowhere. Nothing the Cleveland defense could have done about that one. 60-20, and Detroit starting to pull away. Mosley now in at beater for Cleveland. The lone dodgeball, along with Connard. And we saw that in the Minneapolis game earlier. They put Brechting in a chaser, who actually is now in a chaser before switching into beater. Jones intercepted by Ryder Freed. And Thompson didn't wait for Freed to get out of the zone. It was close, but it's a back to hoops now. No harm, no foul. As Ryder Freed's going to move quickly up the pitch. No beaters back for Cleveland. Off the crossbar and in for Ryder Freed, 70-20. And now we're starting to see how it was yesterday between these two teams, with Detroit pulling away. Brechting now at center for Cleveland, bringing it up. And Brechting, a mid-ranger through the top hoop and good. Pete Brechting, Cleveland's first goal in a bit, 70-30. And Detroit will finally take a line change. The chaser line now. Jenny Sun, Massey, Flaherty, and Wanis in at keeper. Cleveland with beater control. Juanis over to Massey. This duo was a little bit tricky for Cleveland to handle earlier as Juanis gets beat but gets it down to Sun. Sun, a blooper pass over to Fleahy, who handles it, gets around Brechting. Fleahy back to Sun. Sun scores! And it's no beater situation, so Thompson's gonna go on a run. Thompson, Massey to beat, runs right into him, now gets it to Brechting. Brechting shrugs off the tackle from Juanis. Brechting pumps once, twice. Thompson blocked by Massey. And Detroit recovers it, so a fast break and a great chaser defense by Detroit. Huge stop for Ethan Juanis and the Innovators. Cleveland calling for the press now. And they're having a bit of a slow press, I guess. They were slow to get into position. And now a stoppage there. And that was a throw after beat from Detroit. They did get control back, and they're going to throw a long one to Brechting. Knudson's going to get Brechting after the wrap-up from Juanis. And even though Detroit got control off of that, Brechting said, hey, use me as a receiver, get down the field, and it looks like Juanis extremely frustrated with that foul, yellow card. Illegal contact there, so now Brechting does have the ball. Knudson behind him at beater, and now Mosley's going to run in without a dodgeball to try and disrupt against Sue. Immediately gets beat, so now Thompson will have to do it on their own. Down to Gaffney. To Brechting. Brechting immediately gets beat by a laser from Sue, and Massey's going to go in the other direction. Massey, one beater back. Massey just decides to throw it away right to Thompson's hands. And that was kind of a wasted break there by Massey. Few substitutions now. Beaton and Yates in for Riff. As well as Kozak, who now receives the pass on the far side. Kozak way over the head of Gaffney, did not have his feet set at all. And that'll be back to Detroit, who needs to inbound. Fleahy will run it back and come back in. Juanis bringing it up now for the Innovators. Over to Fleahy. Back to Juanis. He's protected by Sue. Juanis driving in. Juanis scores with ease. 90-30. And Cleveland will go ahead and take their timeout as Detroit has had a grip on Cleveland for the majority of this game. Cleveland really needing to make an adjustment on their defense as Detroit has been scoring with relative ease here. Cleveland much less so. They're definitely coming out firing a little harder than they did in the previous two outings against the Innovators, at least on offense. It helps that they were able to put Mosley and Brechting in the white headband, something that they wish they could do all the time, but with the shorter roster, they are unable. The Innovators here, I think, probably want just a little more cohesion on defense. They have done well thus far, but I think it's maybe a little more of Cleveland's offensive ineptitude that's helping out Detroit than maybe getting the defensive looks that they want, that they had against Minneapolis, for example. We'll see what adjustments these teams make as they get out of the break here at the end of the timeout called by Cleveland. So the ball will start with Riff once more. Adam Thompson. And Riff does have control. Beaton and Yates going up against Sue and Knudsen in the beater game. Thompson at center. Cleveland in a diamond formation here. Divison now checked in to Kozak. Kozak shot blocked by Massey, falls directly into Gaffney's hands, who scores, and it's another one for Cleveland, 90-40. So good defense by Detroit there, but an unfortunate block leaves the rebound right into Gaffney's hands. And I think that's exactly the kind of look that Cleveland wants, maybe not the route that they want it to take. As Massey receives it on the near side, wants to get a pick from Moulter, sends it to Markland. Markland misses the pass, now picked up by Fleahy. Back to Massey as Detroit has regained control here, and Knudsen threatening front, Sue coming from the side. Massey just wants that cleared out lane so they can shoot. Massey over to Markland, who volleyball spikes it, and it goes out of bounds. I think the beat was coming in, and Markland just wanted to get it away from them. Moulter was back there, but the spike was not in line with it. Kozak now on the ball for Cleveland, who passes off to Lombardi, checking in now at keeper. Lombardi sends a pass too high to Divison, and that'll go out of bounds. And we'll see exactly what the stoppage is here for. Perhaps a beater foul. Beaton was trying to recover control, managed to... No foul on the play here, so Beaton was beat by Sue. Did get his ball a little bit back, but no good because Yates has also been beat. So Massey, big pass over to Markland. Markland scoring over the top of Divison. And Cleveland will have a substitution here. Jones checks in. And Detroit will make beater substitutions as well. It's Hodder and Swanson. Lombardi to Gaffney at the top of the key. Back to Lombardi. Gets around Moulter. Moulter being extremely aggressive on point defense, and Lombardi to Kozak. Kozak blocked by Markland, and Massey gets the rebound. And they really want that shot from Kozak, but it's not falling as Massey bounding up the field like a gazelle to Moulter. Moulter can't handle the pass, and Kozak falls on it. So some good defense there by Cleveland to fall on the mishandled pass from Moulter. Torowski now checked in, and it's Brechting and Connard back at beater for Cleveland, trying to get control back from Detroit. Brechting creating chaos as Lombardi flips it to Jones. Jones spinning out of Juanis' tackle. Jones driving in, but beat. And no beaters back for Cleveland, so Juanis gets past Gaffney. Juanis, and a pump fake, and then eventually a throw to Markland as Cleveland was very focused on Juanis. And that'll be 110-40 now, Detroit soundly in the lead. Lombardi telling the team the plan. Cleveland has already scored more goals in this game than they have against Detroit in the past 2 this series. Lombardi to Twarowski, tries to flip it to Jones. Jones manages to pick it up. Jones gets beat. And now Hutchman picks it up and unfortunately can't handle it as the Detroit defense swarms and gets it. Detroit taking a couple substitutions now. Pratt and Son and Love now checking in at chaser, as well as Glenn at keeper. Glenn on the far side, now back to Pratt. Cleveland holding control. Pratt blocked by Lombardi. And then I think Glenn's going to get called for a dive here. Dove on the ball, and Lombardi kind of got tabletopped over. And indeed it is. So Ashton Glenn will take a small trip to the box, and that'll be a ball to Lombardi on the far side. Riley Hodder is the lone beater here on the near side, and Pete Brechting in between the two with the ball as well. So it'll be Brechting v. Hodder to try and protect or beat Lombardi, as Lombardi's going to take a streaking run, and Brechting able to shield Lombardi for the score. 110-50, Detroit still in the lead. That'll put Detroit back to full strength, and now Cleveland's calling for a press. And they didn't. They called for a press and then didn't really move, so maybe a miscommunication from the sideline. Glenn to Pratt. Banis and Smiley back in now, trying to get control away from Conrad and Brechting. And a shot from Ashton Glenn is good. 120-50. As Smiley able to wrest control here away from Conrad. And now it's a high Detroit press. Twarowski trying to get around Love. Twarowski gets a pick from Diveston. Up to Lombardi. With Banis out of the play, it's one beater back. And Lombardi drives in and scores through the top hoop. And they want to get him hot. Lombardi takes a sub now. So, you know, as hot as you can be shooting, but sometimes you get tired. Pratt bringing it up for Detroit. Protected by Banis. Smiley also there as Detroit retains control. Pratt getting Thompson to jump. Thompson having none of it. Pratt manages to hang on. Over to Glenn. To Pratt. Pratt shot no good. Recovered by Moulter. Moulter shot blocked by Twarowski. And Dominic Twarowski manages to hold on to it for Cleveland as Moulter high pressure and then backs off. Tudor now checking in for Cleveland at chaser. Thompson tackled by Glenn, and the ball goes over the line, and that is a great defensive effort by Glenn. And now, with exclusively Tudor on this side of the field, but beaten in front of Glenn. Glenn unlikely cannot make a run for it.
If your first pass is to your defense, it can cross the defense.
Play it there.
Pratt calling for Ashton Glenn to just throw it, and Beaton was just completely with Glenn, and even though Detroit broadcast exactly what they were going to do, Cleveland defense did not react in time, and Tudor was not able to get there. Pratt, great run for Detroit, 130-60. Pratt showing up huge for Detroit in these series against Cleveland in particular. They have really been a great ball carrier. Thompson shot no good. Tudor unable to run it down, so Detroit, or no, it looks like it went off Love, so Tudor will go against Love, and the pass too high to Thompson, so Detroit will get it anyways. And so Love setting a pick on Thompson to get it to Glenn, and Glenn takes it all the way, giving it to Pratt for another goal for Detroit, 140-60. And Tudor maybe could have had a little more patience than trying to go one-on-one with Love, who wrapped him up immediately, and maybe could have had a better chance at getting the pass to Thompson. Great Detroit defense here, really locking it down. Detroit with control. Gaffney on the far side. Thompson center. Thompson blocks the beat from Smiley to Divison. Divison shot, no good. And Glenn picks it up going the other way. The near side judge was saying good goal, but head referee said no. And now Detroit will take their timeout. Or was that 20 minutes? Yeah, actually, I think that was 20 minutes. Excuse me. I saw the gesture from the referee, but no, that was the 20-minute timeout. So your current score: Detroit Innovators 140, Cleveland Riff 60, and Detroit in clear control of this game. Cleveland coming out to play this morning. Scored more points in their game against Minneapolis earlier and more points against Detroit now than they had all of yesterday. So we'll see who will be donning the yellow for Detroit. It looks like Jenny Sun will head to the box first. The starting area. And we'll see who Cleveland sends out, and it looks like Jones for Cleveland. So a couple substitutions here maybe. It looks like Detroit has Sviridov and Brodeur in at beater. Cleveland with Rechting and Yates. Our set score an even 200. And Massey will start on the far side of the field near where the Seekers are starting with the ball. Yates, the lone beater back with a ball nearby for Cleveland. And Thompson and Gaffney more immediately in front of Massey. Ryder Freed also checked in for Detroit. So we'll see what the move is here as we regain play, restart play. And Massey will come bring it center for Detroit, allowing his chasers to go up the field. Fleahy in now, down to Moulter. Moulter pass, can't grab it. Over to Ryder Freed to Fleahy, and Cleveland defense in disarray as the passing from Detroit nets them another one, 150-60. Only 5 to go for Detroit, a couple more for Cleveland. Mosley in the white now, bringing it up for Cleveland. As Detroit beaters giving their Seeker Sun some time. And Mosley over to Lombardi, teammates in Rochester, now playing for Riff. Lombardi switching field with Mosley. And Lombardi pass can't be handled by Gaffney and out of bounds, so Cleveland will have to inbounds it. And that's the look that they wanted. They just need to handle the pass.
Good job, Denny.
Let's go, Parker.
Our flag runner, Derek Parker, handling himself well against the Seekers. And Sun is taking a substitution for Luce Markland, see what they can do. Ryder Freed sending it to Sarah Moulter, down to Massey. Massey turning the corner on Gaffney, scoring over Diveson's head. And Massey, those long arms, paying dividends for Detroit once more.
Pete, you're an animal.
Brechting and Conard with control. Brechting doing a lot, and now manages to get a no-beater situation here for Cleveland. We'll see if they can recognize it and hustle. Lombardi gets it to Mosley, took too long, and now the beaters are back in the play. Lombardi dancing, moving. Duck dive, dip dive, and dodge. And Mosley scores after the pass.
Right there.
It's dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. There we go. Another score for Cleveland puts it at 160-70. Detroit just needs 4. Cleveland needs 13. Leahy with it on the far side. Markland getting all sorts of time as Diveson is now the Cleveland Seeker. Back up to Ryder Freed. To Fleahy. Fleahy beat, back up to Freed. Freed, big pass to Moulter. Moulter shoots, no good. And it's a no-beater situation. We'll see what Cleveland can do. The sideline screaming at Lombardi to get himself in gear as Lombardi pulls up and shoots and just sends it directly into the abs of Ryan Sue as Lombardi got Massey around the knee, and that'll be a card. Lombardi pleading his case to the referee here that maybe he slipped down. 2 fouls on the play. And it looks like Lombardi will get an unsporting conduct call as well, so that'll put his time in the box at 1:30. And it looks like he'll hand off the green to Kozak, and that is not what Cleveland needed at all. Momentum shift here as Detroit now gets the power play. Lombardi pulled up for that hard shot, which put it into Massey, who was allowed to move to his own keeper zone line, okay, to reposition himself to get away from the direct line of Brechting.
Go, Parker.
Cleveland with both beaters back, and Sue hoping to make something happen. Sue, a great rollback to Hodder. Cleveland beaters still in the play though, so Detroit will have to be patient. Juanis now in at Seeker, defensively guarding as Diveson just tries to get around him. Ryder Freed beat, trying to get the SWAT goal, unable to do so. And Cleveland, a player down, is just going to have to pass around here. Tudor checking in, and now it's Kozak, Gaffney, and Tudor. Gaffney, pass tried to go to Tudor, but no good, as Freed was putting some pressure on her, and instead it was intercepted by Massey. 160-70, our set score 200. Detroit with a commanding lead. Juanis getting some time with the flag runner.
Keep working, Parker.
Freed over to Massey.
Matchup chasers.
Beaton now in with Conard as the 2 beaters back. Massey over to Freed. Goal is good by Ryder Freed. And Cleveland beaters spread a little too wide there to handle that one, and Detroit found the hole in the defense. Tudor now bringing it up. And the Detroit goal finally gets Lombardi back in the play as Thompson back in at keeper and Hutchman now in at chaser for Cleveland. Swanson now in at beater for Detroit as well. Detroit a little stingier with their chaser substitutions as Lombardi lays it off to Tudor, who gets beat. The rebound goes to Thompson, who gets it to Lombardi. Lombardi scores the cross hoop pass as Frieder's going the other way. Fried loses the handle on the ball, guarded by Lombardi. Over to Moulter. Tudor's there. The pass goes to Fleahy. Fleahy. The ball falls out from the defense from Thompson. Now struggling on the ground with Moulter, and Thompson finally gets the ball. Cleveland running all over the field, trying to get their defenders in place and do so to deny the score. It is 170-80 still.
Keep working. There you go. There you go.
Twarowski now in at chaser. Lombardi sub. As the pass down to Twarowski, blocked by Massey, and Massey's going to go the other way. Tries to get around Thompson here. Mosley's going to put himself in the center of the defense as Massey is dancing at the back line with Thompson. Thompson's going to get that other arm around for a better tackle. There's an advantage call for Detroit. And Detroit now with both beaters and the advantage call. Swanson and Brodeur pressing in on the Cleveland defense. Over to Fleahy, wrapped by Thompson. And with that beat on Fleahy, we'll see what this advantage call adjudicates to. Sun and Jones now checked in for Detroit and Cleveland respectively at seeker. Sun getting some alone time with the flag runner. Cleveland has not had a lot of opportunities. And it looks like a blue card on Jones, the seeker, illegal swat. You hate to see it. And Detroit will now take their timeout based on this stoppage. And it looks like the teams are trying to clarify what the end of that play was. I think Fleahy was beat, and that's what caused the stoppage because there was an advantage call. So Cleveland was trying to determine that. Thompson arguing their case about something, maybe that they'll get the ball at the end of this. We'll see. Detroit taking their timeout now. I think they want to refocus themselves a little bit, maybe. They have 3 goals to go right now. Set score 200. It's 170-80. So we'll see if they have some particular thing that they're trying to do here. Looks like they're putting in Luce Marklin and Lindsey Smyers. So both of them, Smyers a starter, and Marklin sure hands, this Detroit's second highest scorer coming into this series. And it looks like they've got Brady Sowers in as well as Glenn Pratt. So it looks like Detroit is really just trying to put this one away. They've got the big line in, or I'll call it the most athletic line. I don't know what I'll call that. It's not the big line because Detroit does have bigger players. Thompson runs it all the way down. Another cross pass, this time to Twarowski and in. And now Cleveland's finding something for them a little bit. 170-90. Pratt ball handling. It's Knudsen and Sue now in at beater against Mosley and Yates. And Mosley, a bad throw there, gets him out of the play, so it's just Yates back on defense. And the block by Brechting. Rebound gotten by Marklin, who backhands it over to Sowers. Sowers manages to box out Brechting, saves the over and back. which is then handled by Torowski, and Torowski throws it down to Brechting. One hands it, Brechting through Smyers and scores. And this is the highest score Cleveland's put up all weekend, 170 to 100 now.
Keep working, Parker.
Jones working against Sun in the Seeker game still, as Detroit is up on offense. Mosley able to run down beater control for Cleveland, and it's now back. Was really going for that high pressure on Pratt earlier. See if they try to do that again, as the Detroit beaters are a little more central. Pratt still at the top of the key, now over to Smyers. Smyers driving in, back up to Pratt. Knocks it away, and can they save it from out of bounds? They can. Nope, out of bounds. Line judge called it. So Thompson will take it, inbounding it on the edge there. Detroit regained control after that. And so Knudsen and Sue will be back for the oncoming Cleveland offense. Brechting driving in, pass, looking for Hutchman on that cut, no good. Markland intercepted it. Markland's going to go the other way, and Kozak strips Markland, and then Markland knocking over Kozak on the play, but kicks the ball out of bounds, so Kozak now inbounding. And goes back to Thompson inside the zone. Thompson had to clarify. You got to know those rules, folks. All beaters on the ground, and now Knudsen has one for Detroit. Brechting over the head of Hutchman. Kozak able to run it down. Kozak over Markland's head, blocked by Sowers, and a rebound back to Kozak. Kozak scores another, 110 to 170. Cleveland is not going down without a fight in their last game of the season.
Keep working, Parker.
Smyers now on the handle for Detroit as Smiley checks in. Same with Sviridov. Markland back to Smyers. Markland once more. Markland getting big. Underhands it to Sowers, and Sowers puts it through again. Sowers was huge in the late game against Minneapolis, and now they've got one here. 180-110. Detroit just 2 away from the set score of 200. And that was, I gotta say, that was a great play by Luce Markland, knowing the wrap-up was gonna come from Lombardi and effortlessly flipping it to Sowers for that goal. To Tudor. Tudor's gonna get around Pratt. Tudor shot no good. Brechting handles the rebound. Brechting's got another one. And Pratt's gonna go on a run. It's no beaters back for Cleveland. And Lombardi trying to swat away the single lane clearing as Beaton is running down the run. Beaton now beat as Lombardi is trying to get his way through. No good, can't do it. And Tudor gets it on the other end of it. Sowers really trying to work through that contact on Lombardi. And Torowski just moving up the field, getting away from Sowers. Gets it to Gaffney, who immediately gets beat by Sviridov. And an ill-advised move by Torowski puts it in Brady Sowers' hand. Sowers jukes out Torowski for another goal. 190-120. Cleveland had an incredible defensive stand there, and then the ill-advised move led to a turnover and going the other way for a score. And Sowers, another one, inching Cleveland closer to cleaning it out and having a full sweep on the series for the weekend. Lombardi, a high pass through on a cutting Tudor, and it goes out of bounds. Detroit will have that one, and Cleveland will hustle back.
Good job, Parker.
As Detroit maintains control. Sviridov and Smiley, they're holding it down for Detroit. It might be the last possession here as Markland runs it up the field. Now in the hands of Pratt. Over to Smyers. Smyers driving in. Smyers celebrating as it was through the top hoop on an angle, and Smyers driving straight into the heart of the defense with little physical barrier in the way. Referees now conferencing to see. Was it a score? Unfortunately, it was at the odd angle from the camera, so we could not see it. They may be discussing if there was a beat as well. I can't quite tell, just, you know, unfortunately, I don't have a microphone into the huddle. Goal is good, and Lindsay Smyers seals it. The series, the sweep for Detroit. 3-0 against Cleveland, 3-0 against Minneapolis, and Detroit having a great time here at home, lossless. Cleveland fighting back tenaciously, 120, the most points that they put up all season on a team by far. And ending on a high note, nothing to be upset about from that one. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us here for this long North Super Series in Detroit. We appreciate you immensely for all of your support as the season progresses. Please continue to support us by following Major League Quadball on social media. Subscribe on YouTube and ring the notification bell so you know when we go live. Join us later in August 17th through the 19th for the Major League Quadball Championship, and on Monday, Take Back the Pitch. Tune in for that, always a great time, which will be broadcast here on YouTube. My name is Matt Dwyer. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we wish you a great rest of your day.